A big inspiration for the concept of the first video I did on Andor is a video essay by Spaceman, which discusses the non-referential nature of Andor and how this sets it high above all the other Disney Plus attempts. Andor is not only able to stand alone in the Star Wars franchise, it is additive rather than redundant. How exactly Andor achieves this is extremely broad, but while listening to Spaceman's fluffy use of adjectives to describe this form of naturalistic, relatable, and grounded world building, I couldn't help but recall a story I wrote with a friend that embodied these very ideas. I want to explore that project today. I'm going to assume the viewer has no clue what I am talking about when it comes to a film called Batman Ace of Hearts. It just makes more sense to treat it that way. Look, for now, let's just say Ace of Hearts is a non-profit fan film me and a friend made. To be honest, this is one of the hardest videos to write. Originally, I had this topic at the end of the first part about Andor, but after much contemplation and friendly advice, I decided to break it up. Even this topic being in its own video has proven difficult. It's becoming increasingly hard to talk about Ace of Hearts in a serious light, because Ace of Hearts is not really comparable to Andor other than in conception. The execution of Ace of Hearts, while indicative of hundreds of hours of work, does not actually do the concept justice. The limitations and time constraints we were under, especially that I was under, basically allowed us to make the best we could. The best being a film with many great moments, but also so many janky moments and cringe moments, whether this arises from editing errors, from how low end my PC is, voice acting mess ups we couldn't re-record, bad performance from me specifically because we couldn't cast a certain character, the awkwardness of player movement, and probably one of the biggest culprits, rushed animation work. Ace of Hearts is not really a serious work of art as a whole, but we put our heart into it, and we did just enough for the soul of our ideas to emerge momentarily. This is all to say that this is not a plug for this project, nor is it an attempt to elevate this project to the filmmaking and achievement of Andor. That would be absolutely beyond absurd to even attempt. Ace of Hearts is not wholly original like Andor. We had to use copyrighted music and free SFX we knew would fit the atmosphere of the film. We didn't create the tools to make the film, whether that be Mojang software or Minimator. Furthermore, watching Ace of Hearts is honestly not really required to understand this video's point, but I won't directly discuss events in the film until near the end. This isn't like one of those video essays where I just summarize what the fuck I'm talking about. Much of my time here will be on the influences and the conceptual background that Ace of Hearts arrived from, which relates a lot to Andor. A long time ago, I met an Irish kid around my age over an Xbox Live party chat who had similar obsessions. Minecraft and Batman were a significant portion of my childhood, and they remain in some form today. Naturally, these two fixations combine together, the need to create and our love for the dark mythos of Batman. And so we did create, all through a unique, blocky game where you could build your own world rather than just play one designed by a developer. I always knew that Minecraft was sort of cringe, and that this hobby was embarrassing to anyone who didn't understand. As I grew older and some people discovered my videos documenting the hobby, I became pretty much ashamed of it, but I would never stop.
It's J-Man here, and I got something really cool to show you. Hey, what's up guys? It's Damon here, back with another Minecraft Gotham City episode. Pretty sure that I'll have a little bit of amusement mile, because that just makes sense, you know, so... Again, I added a lot of vents. Added stuff on the roof because the roof could look kind of plain. So I don't know where to get started. Actually, there's a lot of stuff. I guess I'll get started on this wall and intensive treatment, all that stuff.
Alright, we're here with Gotham Part 2. Oh my god, wait. I just realized this is starting a new Gotham City series. That's really cringy. That is really cringy. I'm still Steve.
2019 Gotham.
Oh my. That friend I made is named Harry, and one day when we were teenagers, he approached me with an idea he thought I would reject. We take our dreams of creating a Batman film and we actually make it a reality, but it would come at a big cost. We would have to make it in a game we avoided mentioning to other people outside of our friend group, a game that we found pretty embarrassing. How do we make a serious idea, a serious character, and portray them in the most childish, lighthearted game? We weren't the first. Other people tried making their own Batman machinima-likes in Minecraft before, and some succeeded to some extent. But what we would do differently is not recreate a film or combine plot points of multiple into one compilation of comic references, but we would make a wholly original story that you could not predict. We were trying our best to make art in a medium working against that very idea at every step. Is it possible to make art with a licensed character in a game we didn't design? Why did we have such a strong urge to do such a thing in a sea of Batman content anyways? Well, the DC universe is not that much different to Star Wars in the sense that a lot of the content is referential. Some writer creates a new concept, and that concept is continually recreated for a few years, usually in declining quality. The entire DC animated universe is filled with adaptations of comic books, and the ones that have original plots are usually taking from existing elements in the comics. The CW TV shows and even the Gotham show take iconic villains and plot points, then water them down into quick entertainment. Comics themselves even repeat similar concepts over and over and over again. But I don't want to get ahead of myself because I'm not an expert on comics. I'm glad that the recent Batman film tried to evolve the character and take inspiration from sources that weren't just a Cliff Notes version of The Long Halloween. I'm glad it made Bruce Wayne more than just a playboy billionaire character cemented by the Dark Knight trilogy. But even the Batman has its issues. It's still overly realistic in my opinion. It shares plot points with The Dark Knight, and Riddler, although I love Paul Dano's performance, could have easily been an underutilized character named Anarchy instead. A character that would have elevated the political undertones of this film. This would have been a perfect callback to the writer Alan Grant, the creator of Anarchy, who attempted his own commentary on America in a similar way to the Batman. Nonetheless, this film has its Batman-isms, as you will, even though it does evolve other aspects of the Batman mythos less explored in live action. It asks the question, is Batman's violence justified, or is it used as an excuse to carry out personal trauma? Is Batman privileged? Is his perspective biased and misguided? Is the use of fear moral if it is a tool also used by the immoral? These are great questions that aren't asked much, at least not in the mainstream understanding of the character, and dealing with these questions is additive to the mythos rather than redundant. From my understanding, to create an additive work of art in an existing narrative framework like Star Wars or DC Comics, you must step back and reinterpret the world and characters in a unique way. You must ask the hard questions instead of repeating famous answers. You must try as hard as possible not to rely on the framework too heavily, only using that framework to establish your world and commentate on the framework itself. The framework is there to assist a new story. It is the context for which this narrative grows. So while we wanted Ace of Hearts to feel additive, it still contains many references to previous iterations. Andor does the same thing. What's important is that these references are contingent to the narrative of a new work. While Andor may show Coruscant, which appeared many times in the Star Wars prequels, it doesn't ever show a lightsaber, an iconic symbol of that franchise. In an existing property, the creators of a new work within it have to ask themselves what elements define the very nature of said property. For both Star Wars and Batman, nostalgia is one of those important elements. But like in the case of the newer Star Wars shows and even films, this element can be easily abused.
Police! Hands up!
To paint a sunset or to film a sunset, an artist's view of the same subject is thrusted into significantly different thematic meanings depending on the medium in which they portray that subject. This video illustrates an idea I've been interested in for a while, but I couldn't exactly put it into words. The video is sort of breaking down the thematic meanings behind the game Norco, and one of the things he brings up is the art style itself, the fact that the game is made through pixel art. What does that say about the thematic meaning of the game? The resurging love for pixel art and nostalgic technology in indie art spaces is a pushback against the attempted perfection and hyper-realism of a lot of media in the modern world, media that has less gaps to fill with your own imagination. If you follow my channel, you might notice my love for the look of old film. I love imperfection. The text in my videos are usually retro, they wiggle and distort as if played on a CRT TV. I insert sounds of static and vinyl dust into my transitions. Every thumbnail I make has distortion and film grain in some form, and a lot of my videos have a grainy pass over it, even at my detriment when YouTube compresses it into digital mush. An increasing number of modern films intentionally contain a heavy use of imperfect technology to encapsulate a nostalgic emotional tie to an era that has significant cultural symbolism, an era that embodies the start of a cultural awareness for the downhill slide of the American way. Back then, your generic noir detective film might have been seen in the same way I see a modern film like Thor: Love and Thunder, commercial, redundant entertainment. This isn't to say both are on the same level of artistic expression at all, but people at the time probably saw this simply as a genre that would be exploited until it died. This was just another commercial film genre. When you go back and watch a noir film like Double Indemnity, two things elevate it to a higher standard of saliency. For one, the film dates itself iconically in a world that reflects and embodies its very thematic topic. Two, the limitation of technology, sometimes intentionally, and the expressionistic use of high contrast lighting creates a setting that is not exactly hyper-real, but instead has a level of imagination that needs to be wavered by the viewer. The audience has to imagine color in black and white, micro details of the environment through heavy film artifacts, and hidden spaces within pitch black shadows. Instantly, the use of such dated artistic expressions and limited technology today automatically alters the thematic meaning of a film. It invites an entire list of questions about how the film is related to the technology, politics, economy, and aesthetic of a long past time period. Tying all this back, Batman himself is closely related to the noir aesthetic I'm talking about, because the art style that defined Batman through much of comic history is one of darkness and heavy contrast, but even more importantly, the archetype of Batman himself is straight out of a hard-boiled detective comic in the noir era. In a film like The Batman, the use of such limited technology is artistically expressing the roots of the character, but also the imperfection and dirtiness of Gotham itself. The specific way in which you capture a world, fictional or not, will dramatically alter the thematic tone you wish to convey. While Ace of Hearts reflects the noir history of Batman with some of its visuals, with its film grain and stuff, this discussion of nostalgia and the artistic lens in which people express a certain subject is the setup to address the elephant in the room. What does it mean for Ace of Hearts thematically that it was made in Minecraft? This is either the tragic flaw with Ace of Hearts or possibly our greatest personal touch. There's a sequence in this film that tries to address this very idea, an abstract set of metaphors that functions as a bridge for me and Harry to speak to the viewer almost directly. It starts with a slow dolly through a hallway filled with paintings I poured my heart into, and other famous works that inspired those paintings. Cut to a grid of prison cells. One is open, with a crazed writer filling the walls. It embodies how much Harry writes, how many ideas he has, but there is an insanity to how his conceptions seem to never be finished. They can always be better. Cut to a withering statue in the dark. It's hard to make out, but the player skins we always wore sit atop this foundation. Finally, it fades to the symbol of our film, a rose in a pot. This is a reference to the first teaser we had for the film. It embodies a celebration that after all this hard work, our creation is finally done, even if it was not everything we wanted. This little sequence does not save the film in any way, but it is one of the few that feels consistent at its core. The rest kind of contends with itself. It battles its own building blocks. The main aspect I love most about this film is the set design. Since it was made in a video game, we had no limits. We could fully express the world we wanted, but we still kept it subtle. We still had constraints. We didn't do any skyline shots or any major crazy things. The closest you'll get are mini model illusions of the city. When we first started planning this, we knew that the action could not be its strongest element because the environment, that is the strongest aspect of Minecraft, and we had to take advantage of that. By creating all of these little sections for different scenes, some only used for 1 or 2 shots, we basically made little windows into a fictional world. The space, this fictional environment that is fleshed out through Ace of Hearts is, I think, its defining feature. What makes it feel more alive than other attempts, and what I think is the best element of the film. On the other hand, what might have derailed the film was the need for it to be more and more impressive as we kept going through production. We inserted more and more action, the weakest element of Minecraft. I love the narrative we crafted in the script and writing phases, especially the rat character who is giving us a tour of Arkham and providing further symbolism for the two main characters. Everything about the concept, the writing of this movie is great to me, but wanting to fight against the strengths of Minecraft to tell a story that could only be done justice if it were in a larger production was the nail in the coffin. I still love so much about the film when it comes to our transitions, pacing, and framing techniques. How we made up this new scene description called The Void, a type of expressive version of a set with infinite darkness and a bright spotlight emphasizing the subjects. I still love the colors, I still love the atmosphere, the sound design especially. That intro perfectly embodies the environmental focus we hoped for, but the action is not always at the same quality. What I think works about parts of the film is that Minecraft embodies a nostalgia for our generation. The interconnectedness of a pixelated retro video game that we played throughout our entire childhood can correlate to the nostalgic aesthetic of Batman that is derived from the noir era. One element of nostalgia is modern, it's one that we know very well personally. The other predates us by over 50 years. The story in of itself is about the past. The main characters spend a majority of the film taking turns telling a story about a past event, some nostalgic, some painful. The music choices we made, the color choices, all embodied some nostalgic personal element about each of these past stories they would tell, that we called exemplars. From Halo ODST's noir main theme to Thank God for the Rain from Taxi Driver, Ace of Hearts is about nostalgia, hopefully in a non-abusive way. Ace of Hearts is the result of two insanely ambitious people who were desperate to tell a story we simply did not have the tools and technical background to consistently and appropriately express, but I still don't regret making it. Okay, it's time to talk about what Ace of Hearts actually is, considering I have yet to really explain the specifics of the plot or story at all. This is because Ace of Hearts is a film told through blurry glass. It's a script embodied in a bizarre Frankenstein monster called Minecraft. The context behind this alters what the film could say. Me and Harry's favorite themes from Batman media is the discussion of Batman's hypocrisy and the complicated morality of his many foes. Should Batman kill? Think of the famous comic, The Killing Joke, written by Alan Moore in 1988, a book that begins with Batman entering Arkham Asylum to question Joker, but in reality he visits a man pretending to be Joker. The supervillain has already escaped, planning to mentally and physically torture the ones Batman cares about most. Alts prove that all it takes is one bad day to become a monster, to become irredeemable. The story attempts to humanize the most inhuman, horrific Batman villain, then ask whether they deserve to die or not. Although we love this comic, it didn't do enough. It didn't fully unlock the potential of Batman and Joker's relationship. Imagine instead, we throw away all the theatrics. Batman arrives at Arkham Asylum to question Joker. He walks into the cell, the door locks behind him. He sits down with a sigh. Joker is silent across the table, but this time, it's not a fake. There's no illusion to be had, and he has no intention of escaping. What would these two talk about? Harry and I tried to create a film that would say something, be personal, not just retell a great story from the past. Whether we achieve that or not is up to the viewer, but this was our goal. It's why Ace of Hearts is primarily a character drama. There's not really a villain, there's no bombastic fights or anything. One of the main characters is literally a rat that doesn't even talk and doesn't even really have a name. The biggest threat to our cast is a thunderstorm. In our film, the goal isn't to defeat the Joker or uncover a secret plan. Those are dead in the past. Batman simply wants one thing from the Joker: his real name. Like Andor, Ace of Hearts attempts to look into the unnoticed subtleties and quiet ambience of Gotham. This is partially because the medium we chose to tell it through, but also because big properties like Star Wars and DC Comics primarily focus on the macro plot, the war against the Empire, Batman versus otherworldly villains. It is common in Gotham City or Star Wars to witness a world-ending threat, a moment that will change everything in their respective universes. But Andor and our film aren't interested in those bombastic, larger-than-life elements. We want to see these worlds as they are, the quiet moments, the personal moments. Turn off the crazy music for a moment, take away the lightsabers and magic, shift the narrative away from the defeat of one entity that embodies evil, say something else. Andor is about people, it's about atmospheres and emotions we all know very well. It's about environments that are lived in. It's about history, not just the titles of each chapter in that textbook, but the little details under each of them. It's not only about the people who will be worshipped or idolized in the future, it's about the people no one will remember. While Batman and Joker fight atop the tracks of a theme park or argue in a prison cell, the people of Gotham carry on. They make do with what they have to last another day. They go to work, however shitty that work is. They sit in traffic or walk through toxic air. They sleep through endless sirens. They tiredly drink coffee at a diner serving breakfast at 10 p.m. A homeless man bundles up under trash bags in the nearby alleyway. We ask ourselves, what causes a normal person to become a monster, become irredeemable? But I think too many of us are looking for a big red sign to reveal the answer, when really all of it is in the details, the subtle moments, the quiet contemplation, the normalization of a sick environment. Gotham is normal to those who don't know anywhere else. Coruscant is normal to those who don't know anywhere else. Ferrix, Marlana 1, Aldani, America is normal to those who don't know anywhere else. At the end of Ace of Hearts, after a long-winded conversation, telling stories of hypocrisy, broken trust, and purposelessness, Batman finally gets the answer to a simple question. But was it ever really about that, actually? The real lesson comes from where he finds this name. Batman discovers an abandoned, dying apartment, a place that was lived in and surely defined its residents. Years of decay mark a physical representation of the souls that tainted these cramped, isolated rooms. A place surely where stories of hypocrisy, broken trust, and purposelessness were a reality, where a normal person becomes irredeemable, becomes a monster. I am deeply afraid that this normal world we live in is only as normal as our conditioning has taught us. Wake up.